have a little wedding today. Or not. This is Lydia Mulliken. And Lydia Mulliken is 22 years old on April 19th, 1775. And she lives in Lexington, Massachusetts. Now, she lives with her family. She has brothers and sisters. Her father died about 8 years ago. But her mother she lives with her mother, and they have the clock shop that her father used to build clocks, and now her brother Nate builds clocks. And she is engaged to someone from Concord who has a really fast horse. Who's she? The handsome doctor, Samuel Prescott. And remember, he rode with Paul Revere that night, and he's the one that got the word to Concord, right? So he lives in Concord. Now, they are, up until April 19th, they're planning their wedding. And his best man is his brother Abel. Now, Abel, Sam is 24 years old. Abel is 2 years older.
Yeah.
Really. And Abel rode that day too. He rode, after Sam got to Concord, he kept riding. And Abel rode too. Now, because her father is dead, her brother Nathaniel, the clockmaker, is going to give her away. And so, we're going to have a wonderful wedding picture. Now, Nathaniel is now the clockmaker, and he helps bring in money for the family. He still lives at home. And he is a true son of liberty, and he was on the green that morning with the captain's militia. Now, the reverend that's going to marry them is Reverend Emerson, and he's from Concord, and he is actually Sam's pastor, and he's the one that's going to marry them. And so they're busy planning their wedding. And everything is going to be beautiful, isn't it? And then April 19th, 1775 happens. Now, the Reverend decides to do his part for America. And he goes away with the troops, with the Continental Army, to be a pastor with the Continental Army. And 2 years later, he dies of camp fever. Sam's brother Abel is wounded as he comes back from the ride that morning. And he has to hide out in a house until all the redcoats are gone. And 3 months later, being wounded was almost worse than dying that day. 3 months later, he died of his injuries. Now, Nathaniel was militia, wasn't he? He was on the green that morning. And later that night or early the next morning, the Lexington militia went to join all the forces that were surrounding Boston. And Nate went with them, leaving his family to kind of fend for themselves. So, 2 years later, Nathaniel died of camp fever and never came back. Never came back. Now, Sam Prescott, what does he do for a living? He's a doctor. Yeah, Sam Prescott's the doctor, remember? The young, handsome doctor with the fast horse. He too goes with the Continental Army. And And it is thought that about 2 years later, he too dies in prison. Now Lydia never heard from Sam. She never heard another word. And she waited 8 long years for Sam. But you know, one more thing happened on April 19th to Lydia. As the Redcoats were leaving Lexington, they burned her house and the clock shop to the ground. So her family had to go live with family all over in the area.
And she died.
No, she lived. But you know, you may not remember Lydia's story. But what I want you to remember is the sacrifices that Lydia made because she believed in freedom. This is a wedding that never happened. And she did die, you know, many years later. Well, of course, it was 1775. Of course she's not still alive. She never got to marry Sam. She never got to have this wedding. But she died free. And so this is the wedding that never happened.